Okay, guys. I've said to a few people that I'll do a video for a while now, having a look at exactly how the Eco Pro 2 works. So we have our Eco Pro 2 here, and currently it's stripped down, so I can show you a bit. Sorry if the camera moves a bit. I'm just going to turn this to the side and put it down there so we can see it. And specifically, we're looking at that spring there. Right, anyway, this is the Eco Pro 2, as you know, and it's all open. This is your water pump. Basically, there's a solenoid, this here, and when it's energised, it pushes that up and pushes onto a tube at the top here, which then pushes through these non-return valves here. And then, let me just make sure I'm getting that in. It's then pushed up to the nozzles in the lid. This is your water. This is your solution delivery system. I'll show you a bit more how this works. But if you can see the spring here and the arm, and again we have another solenoid here. I'll just move it over slightly. So we have another solenoid here. And what happens is when that's energized, it pulls that arm across back to itself, and there's a wheel attached, which I'll show you shortly. And the wheel then connects onto the platter stem. So the wheel connects onto, let's just move this up. The wheel connects onto this. Now, as you can see there, you see the groove on the bottom. Now, what this means is this return spring here is broken. That return spring there breaks. I personally think it's a design fault. I've not seen one machine ever, and I've had about 6 or 7 of them in that haven't had that broken. So anyway, that spring, once that breaks, that causes that ridge in the base. It causes this ridge bit here. I don't know if you can just see it. Yeah, you can see it there. This. Now what happens over time is as that ridge gets further and further, because what's happening is the spring pulls it back, so it pulls this little wheel off the stem, and when it breaks, the solenoid will pull the wheel onto the stem, but then there's nothing to pull it off the stem. So over time, it creates friction and ends up with that hole, eventually to the stage as, or that rim, eventually to the stage as the wheel will no longer contact with the stem, and then you need to buy a new platter or try and fix it in some kind of way, but in general they will just carry on breaking until you put a new one on there. But it's self-fulfilling, because if you don't replace that spring, it'll carry on and it'll just do the same quite quickly. So this is a major design fault for me with this machine, and it's the only one really. Everything else is really straightforward. Right, so we've got it there. There's a general idea. So I'm just going to bring it over here, and we've got one in pieces. So return here. This is the, hang on, let's get it to there. This is the Eco Pro 2 and it's split apart. This solenoid, it's a very basic machine. It uses 2 solenoids. Well, it uses 3 solenoids. That's the solenoid that pulls the wheel onto the base. So if we put this, we put it onto there and it clips in. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it, but once it's clipped in, then the wheel sits here and is pulled onto the bottom. So that's that solenoid. This is for your lid, which is a straightforward thing. When it needs to open the lid, it energises it, which pulls that back, allows the lid to come up. So there we go for that. Then now if we move it on its side, we will. The final solenoid is this one here at the back. Now what that does is it pushes up. When it's energised, it pushes up, and then if we come back here, we can see that little knobble here. Right, so it's energised and it pushes that up. That's it, really. This connector is for connecting up to the main panel on the top. So we'll have a look at that bit, and then you can see how these other bits work. I'll just move that out of the way. And we'll bring this one down into view. Oh. So, this is what I was saying about the wheel. If you can see the wheel there, so normally it sits in that position where that wheel's not near this hole. When the solenoid energises, it pulls it forward and then creates that. Well, this is where the platter shaft comes through. So what happens is it should normally be sat like that, but it's the spring that connects within here. It's on this side. It's that spring that pulls it off, and when that breaks, it doesn't pull it off. So that's the only weak point for me. Now, the other bit that I was saying, where the water pump is this piece here. That might be getting a little bit better. So that little piece of plastic bangs on this middle bit, and these non-return valves pull water in, and it won't let the water go back out. So each time it does, it creates, when you've primed, there's a vacuum there then, and the vacuum is increased each time that solenoid bounces on that tube. Oh, sorry, bounces on that tube. There's nothing else really to the lid. It's all fairly straightforward stuff. What I would say is you have to be careful with these. If you start getting low water, in fact, let me just flip that out. So this can come up like that. If you start getting low water, you're struggling to get water through, it could be an issue with this little piece of tube. Right, what I've done with this one is I've used some sealant and sealed both ends, because if it pulls water in any way, air in any way, obviously it won't push the water through correctly because there'll be an airlock in the vacuum. So I tend to find that if you can just glue the outer bits and get them so they're absolutely solid and there isn't any way of air getting in. The other thing you can do is, because of the way it sits, these end bits here, it's quite supple. So if you get some small cable ties and put them round it, then it will still sit back in fine, and this bit will still hit. Oh, right. And then you just push it back in like that. This bit is the replacement of the main solution system using a dosing pump. The main solution system's a pain in the backside, especially with that wheel, which causes all the problems, and you have to have that all sorted in order to pump solution through. After a lot of messing about, I found that using a dosing pump in order to pump the solution through with the right width of tube and everything, it comes out very, very similar to the original, and I've not noticed any issues using different liquids. So that I will show more about shortly. The last thing that I would say about it is, the only other thing is the lid. When your lid opens and closes, I'll just turn this round. So when your lid opens, there, it's controlled by a little pump thing. Now what happens is, over time, is the actual the vacuum within this that allows the motion gives, and the seals give, so it allows air in, so it comes up very, very slowly. It's pretty easy to sort out. Get a spring, compression spring. This just winds off. Oh, I'll have to pick that up in a second. This just winds off. And there we go, that comes off. So when we'll take that off. And by just pushing this back on, you'll see how lumpy it is. Right, so we'll just push it back on. So if we push it down now, you can see how it's not returning. So by having the spring in there, the spring compensates for that, and you've obviously got the pressure of the spring itself. Now these little units on their own, I can't remember what they're called. You're looking at stupid money. I bet you're looking on near $100 quid, $100 to get one. There's only one company that makes them, or that I can find to this specification. So basically, by putting that spring in there, now when you push it down, you've got the resistance of the spring also helping, and it fits back into the unit perfectly without any problems. So that's the machine and how it works. Like I say, I'll show you a little bit more in the next video. We'll put this back together, and then we'll have a look at any other bits. I'll show you more about the pump system.